In the fast-paced world of business, finding a clear path to profitability can be a challenge. Welcome to 0 to 100 with your host, Jared Guy Randolph, seasoned business and finance expert. Tune in for actionable insights and strategies to accelerate your business success.
Hello, Accelerators. Today on 0 to 100, we are going to have no-nonsense finance expert, speaker, author, and founder of the Pivot Business Group, Pam Jordan, join us. We're going to discuss everything from overcoming shame around your business finances to putting together a stellar team, why a business attorney is crucial for your success, and how much can you actually justify paying yourself, and the hidden message that the numbers are telling about your business. Ladies and gentlemen, let's accelerate together. Pam Jordan, we are very happy to have you here today on 0 to 100. How you feeling?
Awesome. How are you?
I am amazing. I want to dive in with you as you are a finance and business operation expert and ask you a very important question. What is the number one way in which business owners are lying to themselves about their financial management?
The number one thing, most likely, it's assuming that it's being taken care of. Most business owners say, oh, I have someone for that. I have an accountant. I have a CPA. I have a bookkeeper. And they themselves are not taking ownership of their numbers. And they're just assuming it's being handled. And the thing is, look, business owner, it's your money. I don't care if you're doing $500,000 a year or 8 million or 20 million a year. It's your money. And if you're not taking ownership of those numbers and having reports or dashboards that you're looking at minimum on a monthly basis, you're completely taking your eye off the ball. It's your money. You're assuming it's handled. I see people make bad decisions every day because they're not understanding what their true numbers are.
So let's talk about the psychology around that. In your mind, you work and bring in your outside CFO consulting services to hundreds, if not thousands of businesses. I'm not sure how many you've worked with, but I know it's a lot. And I actually know many of the people you have worked with successfully. What is the psychology around your financial management being so secondary in the business? Why does that happen? And what can business owners do to shift their mindset around financial management?
Shame. There's an immense amount of shame around money. And I am not a mindset guru. I've spent a lot of time with people who are. And really, we learn about money from our parents. And so if you saw mom and dad struggle and stress about paying bills and argue about money, you have trauma around that. And then you yourself, as you became an adult and started to pay bills and had to choose what to pay when you didn't have enough money, there's a lot of shame and guilt around money and finances. And we carry that into our business as entrepreneurs and as visionaries, mavericks, whatever, cool persona you want to wear. And so if mom and dad didn't have it together and didn't show you how to manage money, and you as a 20-year-old ran up credit card debt in college because you didn't know any better, you have shame around money. And so I talk to company owners who run multiple $1-million businesses, and they have shame around their finances. And it's because no one ever taught them. No one ever helped them understand, look, you are a money person. It's okay. You don't have to understand retained earnings, but you need to understand the basics of your financial statements because your financials tell a story. Right. And they're telling a story about you and about your business. And the outside business world understands that story, what the story is. And it's the trauma of our childhood and the trauma of not being, of having $7,000 of credit card debt by the time you're 24, not knowing how you got there.
It's funny that you say that. So I listen to a lot of mindset and do a lot of mindset work, and I've been doing it for years and started studying with Bob Proctor and Mary Morrissey. And I've learned so much about myself. And now the latter part of my career, I am focused on more financial management, and management, and learning a higher level of skill set to grow my business. But I'm a little taken aback by how frank you were and how you hit the nail right on the head by using the word of shame. Because
Yeah.
one of the guys I listened to, David Bayer, was doing a podcast, and he said people have shame, trauma around money. And the conversation you should have with yourself is, when I was growing up, money was blank, insert here. And for me, it was shame, it was struggle, it was lack, not always having enough money, being kicked out of homes because we didn't have enough money. And it's funny because I have noticed that there was a point in time in my career where I noticed things just not coming together, and was never able to pinpoint that till much later on. And it was shame. And it's fascinating to me how many business owners suffer through exactly what you have just mentioned. But there are ways to overcome it. One of the ways to overcome it is bringing in someone to help you with financial management. So we're talking to existing business owners. And let's say those existing business owners are struggling with or don't have all of the answers to the financial management. When should they bring in a team, and who should they bring in to help them manage their business? Let's use an example of a business that's doing $3 million in revenue a year, couple employees, and they're continuing to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So for a company of that size, they should have an outsourced bookkeeper. And depending on the product or service that they sell, they might be on the cusp of needing a full-time in-house bookkeeper. The reason I say that, because it's north of the 2 million mark. If you have heavy inventory, like if you're a product-based business, or if you do a lot of invoicing, internal invoicing for services, like a construction company or like a gutter company or service provider trades, you really need an internal person, because you need to start doing job costing. Because, for example, if you wanted your bathroom remodeled, that company should be tracking every dollar that they spend on your bathroom to you as a customer. So at that size, they're really on the cusp of needing almost a full-time internal bookkeeper, depending on their industry. But bookkeepers should have been hired years ago, depending on how quickly they grew. They definitely need a tax strategist, because ideally they are making money and 100% guarantee they're overpaying on taxes, because most people just have a tax preparer who's not proactively helping them save on taxes. And then a fractional CFO is imperative at that size, because how you ran a 6-figure business isn't how you run a 1 million. And how you run a 3 million isn't how you run a 5. And how you run a 5 isn't how you run a 10. And if they want to exit their business for a number that brings legacy money, they need a fractional CFO to help them get there.
So let's talk about, if we've got a full-time bookkeeper, a fractional CFO, and a tax strategist, how much should a business owner be budgeting on a monthly basis to bring in those type of people into their business?
Great question. So typically you're looking 2 to 3% of gross revenue to have accounting, tax, CFO support.
Okay. So you're doing $300,000 a month, anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000 a month for all of those services combined.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So you talked about getting your finances in order, especially when you've got a business that's starting to grow. How do you increase the value of your business so you do have that larger multiple when you look to exit or sell in the future?
Absolutely. So the secret there is, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. You could be a $3 million company and broke and worth nothing. Or you can be a $1 million company with a 25% net profit and be worth more on exit than a $3 million company. So it's all about net profit. That's the trick.
How long does it typically take to start preparing for an exit? So is it a 1-year plan, 2-year, 5-year plan where you should say, we need to have an exit strategy?
So in M&A, mergers and acquisitions, a potential buyer is going to want 3 years of financials. If you're wanting to exit within the next 3 to 5 years, now is the time to be playing a different game. When I talk to clients that want to exit in 10 years, we play a very different tax game and CFO strategy game than we do that somebody that wants to exit in 3. If you want to exit in 1, depending on your financials, you're going to leave money on the table. We have a number of clients that we're working with right now who are preparing for an exit. And depending on each client's timeline, some of them are going to not get as much because they're not giving themselves enough runway. 18 months, if you've been doing well in your company, can be enough. But what I find is most companies, when we walk in, their profit's not where it needs to be. They're not managing their money clearly. They don't have the right tax team that's helping them be proactive. And unfortunately, a lot of tax professionals cost you money on your exit because of the tax game that they're playing. I would say 3 years. If you're less than 3 years and your financials aren't as strong as you want, you're not going to get the exit that you want.
So it sounds like to me that it's a minimum of 3 years, but really when you start a business, and this is one of the things I've learned from my mentors over the years, is you should actually have a 5-year exit plan, not because you're going to exit. It's because you should have a benchmark of what you're trying to reach. For somebody who is earlier on in their business, let's say 2 years in their business, who should they focus on having advice for them to say, hey, advisor, if I'm 3 to 6 years down the road, how should I be looking at my business for a potential exit? Who should they have in their back pocket?
Absolutely. So if you're just 2 years in, it's important to have a couple people that are strategically helping you. So a good business attorney is important because you need to make sure that anything that you sign or anything that you have your client sign is structured correctly. Are your contracts assignable? Do your team members, contractors, and employees have non-solicitations? Make sure that your legal house is in order because on an exit, if you don't have your legal side put together, you're not worth as much. So that's huge. And a cheap attorney costs more than an expensive one.
Is it more of the legal structure of the business and the financial structure of the business, or is it a combination of the two?
It's a combination of the two because you need a strong business foundation. And if you don't have your legal entity structured properly, and if you don't have your contracts, you might not be sellable.
What would you say your top 2 warning signs that your finances are not being handled properly by the team that you have in place?
If you get a surprise tax bill, so if your CPA says something like, hey, it looks like you had a great year. Congratulations. You owe the IRS $40,000. I need your bank information so we can go ahead and draft that for you. Red freaking flag. Like, first off, there should no surprise tax bill. You should know what's coming. And if the CPA is like, oh, it looks like you had a great year, and in your gut, you're like, I have no money in the bank. I hustled my tail off and I've got nothing to show for it. There's a huge disconnect. And then the other red flag is if you haven't seen your business's financial reports for the last 30 days, you have a problem. If it's been 60 days, really bad. If it's been 90 days since your bookkeeper or supporting team has shown you a P&L and balance sheet, fire them and go hire someone else immediately. I'm sorry if you've been paying them $500, $1,000 a month and they're behind. You need a better team.
Tell me one of your war stories. You can exclude names, but what is the worst business situation that you've had to go in and fix in your career?
The first one that comes to mind was a client. I was brought in because special assets from the bank told him he needed to bring in a fractional CFO or they were going to take possession of the building and his business. Special assets is the part of the bank that you never want to talk to. So if you have a line of credit with the bank or some sort of loan with a bank and you are delinquent on payments and the banker in those situations, at least every year, the banker is going to ask for your financials. They're going to want your AR report. They're going to want your P&L and your balance sheet. Again, your financials tell a story. And if the story that is being told to the bank makes them want to crap their pants, they send you to special assets because special assets then goes in and says, hey, we've seen your financials. Things aren't going so well. Help us understand what your plan is to right the ship so that you don't go out of business. Because if you think about it, banks lend you money because they expect you to pay them back. And they expect that you have the assets, the accounts receivable, the equity in the building, the equity in the business, the equity in the equipment. to get their money back. They don't lend you money out of the kindness of their heart. So if special assets ever calls, you're screwed.
And then what happened in this situation where special assets was called on this particular
So
business?
special assets was called in. This particular owner owned a building that was worth $5 million. And his business was doing over $3 million in sales at a loss of $800,000. So $3 million top line. It cost him 3.8 to run the business. So he was upside down $800,000. Multiple reasons why. One is he had a pretty lavish lifestyle and was burning through money. The other main piece was the service that he was providing was at a loss. And every time he sold a service, say, for example, he sold it for $5, it cost him $5.10 because he didn't understand his fulfillment costs. So I went in because the bank told him he had to hire a fractional CFO. I went in, found out the internal accounting team would have been great for $500,000 a year company, but was significantly over his head at a $3 million company. So invited them to succeed elsewhere and hired a controller. That's how I fired them. Yes, that's how I nicely fire people. And so then I did cost analysis for them and helped them understand exactly what was going on. We hired a operations director because the owner was a visionary, not an implementer, not an operations guy. He was great at ideas, baller at sales, but the logistics of the business was not, he just couldn't do it. And so hired a director of operations, hired a new controller, and did cost analysis, helped to understand from here on out, you don't sell anything from less than $6, right? Like,
Gotcha.
It's not worth getting out of bed and being broke. And then we put him on a personal budget so that he could only spend so much money.
So there's two things that came from that story that I want to ask you. And I think it's really important for the listeners because these are two challenges that businesses face. And we'll deal with one and then we'll deal with two. Before you go for a loan, how do you build or create the best story you possibly can for the bank and build a relationship with the bank so they want to lend you money?
So it comes down to your financials. If you need to have accurate and current financial records to show the bank, and those records need to be favorable, they need to make you look good. You've got a pig in your background. You got to put lipstick on the pig. That's what we say in the South. Like, you got to put lipstick on the pig. So you need to make sure that your financials are making you look good. Again, banks lend money to you because they want to be paid back. It is easier to get a loan from the bank when you don't need it than when you do. Because if your financials are not strong and your net profit's not where it needs to be, sales are down, banks are not going to be eager to provide you money. But if you have money in the bank, sales are strong, net profit is good, that's when they're going to be lining up to give you money. Right? And so it's all about timing.
What I've actually done when I've had businesses early on in my career, it was a struggle to get funding. So I might have had to have gotten private funding. But later on in my career, when things were going well in the businesses, I actually went out and borrowed money when I didn't need it. And the reason I did that was because I established the relationship with the bank when things were good. So the best time to ask for money, and especially in capital raising, is when you do not need money. The same thing goes with debt. So if you're a business right now and you're successful and everything is going really well, you're profitable, go get that $250,000, go get that $1 million line of credit lined up. So you have that safety net if you need it in the future. Another thing I wanted to ask you from that story, which is something I've never been able to get a really clear answer on. I feel like you'll be able to give this to the audience. How much can you justify paying yourself outside of the company, maybe taking care of your expenses like your travel and your car and food when you're taking your clients out? How much can you justify paying yourself as a business owner?
That's a great question. And the answer is as much profit as is available. When you think about your financial statement, your profit and loss, a P&L, Your profit is the bottom number. Now, that number you need to look at, and hopefully it's positive. And then you need to look at what your monthly debt service is. So to your point, it is imperative to get debt when you don't need it, so that down the road, when you need it, it's there. So say, for example, your profit on a monthly basis is $10,000, but you have $2,000 that you have to pay for SBA loans, lines of credit, vehicles, whatever. So then you have $8,000 less, right? So from that, I recommend that you put a portion of it aside for taxes, and not necessarily taxes to pay the IRS, but tax strategy, because your profit, you pay debt with it. That's what you have to pay taxes with. And then from that, it's your money.
Let's talk about what you're paying out of that. And I think maybe this is what you were going to lead into: mixing personal and business funds. Do you pay yourself a W-2 salary? Do you take a 1099 as a business owner and have your own personal write-offs? What is the most tax efficient way to do it, and the best way for accounting for the business?
So it depends on your business legal and tax structure, whether you take a W-2. So if you're an LLC single member, you can't take a salary. If you're an S Corp or a C Corp or an LLC taxed as an S, you have to take a salary. So it depends on your business legal and tax structure, how to compensate yourself, because there are tax structures where you're not supposed to be a W-2 employee of your business. And there's tax structures where you are required to be a W-2 of your business. And not everyone understands that. And so I've met people that are S Corps, and I'm like, okay, great. Well, what's your salary? Oh, I don't take a salary. Okay, well, you're legally obligated to. And whoever's been doing your taxes should have told you that. What we recommend is a combination of salary and distributions. So we want you as the business owner, if your business is profitable, to have a very good living. I have clients that make multiple tens of thousands a month from their business to fund their lifestyle, but it's through multiple avenues. It's through tax advantageous ways. As a business owner, you being a high salaried person isn't always the best tax way for you. So most of our clients, their personal compensation, less than 50% of it is from their W-2. Most of it is through distributions, accountable plans, Augusta rule, retirement investments, insurance contributions, all of those, and not necessarily W-2. But for most business owners, being a W-2 employee is the best tax advantage, because then we can do retirement, then we can do an accountable plan, then we can put kids on payroll. Like, there's lots of advantages to be an employee of your business. But the actual structure that's best for you depends on what your goals are, depends on if you have business partners, depends on what the assets of the business are. Because most people need an operating company or a holding company, and then have all their other businesses connected up to it. And you don't need to be on salary from all of those businesses. Maybe just one or two of them do you need to be on salary for. So the answer is, it depends on your business structure and your legal structure and what your goals are. But we want you to make money from this business. We want you to have a good lifestyle, but your business is not your piggy bank. I once had a client who $100,000 a month Amex bill, and 20% of it was his shopping habits. And I'm like, dude, you don't need that many shoes
or watches or whatever you're buying. So you have a phrase, a statement: if it's not in writing, it never happened.
Yeah. So if it's not in black and white, it doesn't exist. And this happens all the time where people do handshake deals. Oh, I'm going to bring on this salesperson. He's been my buddy from high school. He's going to help me make things happen, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well then your understanding of what the commission was is not the same of what his understanding of the commission was. And there's no signed agreement about non-solicitation or non-compete or anything. And then he walks with your entire list. I've seen it. Then also you bring in contractors to work for you, and you don't have a clear scope of work. You don't have a clear compensation structure. You don't have any legal protection. And one day he gets tired of answering to you and being part of your team, and he thinks he can make more money by himself. Again, out the door with your clients.
So really, it's protecting your IP, it's protecting your client list, it's protecting your business. that everything should always be in writing. And I've always said, I'm all about a handshake deal. That's the man that I am. And we're going to back up that handshake with a contract. And if anybody gets weird about a contract, they're going to screw you, period.
100%.
Let's shift a little bit and talk about profitability and how do we add money to the bottom line. So let's say we're going to target adding 5, 10%. What are ways that we do add money as our business currently exists to our bottom line?
So the basic math of it is sell more, spend less. It sounds so silly, but if you think about your health, like if I want to be healthier, move more, eat less, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same with your business health. If you want to increase your profitability, sell more, spend less. And so to put legs to that, one thing to do is to look at your expenses and do what we call an expense audit and go through and figure out where is money being left on the table. Most businesses, unless someone is stealing from you, there's not money rushing out the door. Most of the time, it's a leaky bucket. It's 2% here, 0.5% here, 1% here. And it's multiple places where you're overspending just because you're not taking the time to stop and look. Software is a huge one. I have clients that story after story, spending hundreds to thousands a month on software that they're not even using. They have 5 licenses for Adobe when they only need 1. Well, that's $249 a month. That adds up. One thing to do is pull up your credit card statement, your Amex, your Chase, whatever it is, for the last 3 months and just go look and see what's auto dinging your card. And do you still need those things? Because when we do an expense audit, we can find 2 to 10% savings. The next thing to do is look at like your insurance cost and your payroll costs. A lot of times those can be renegotiated. Your insurance, raise your deductible, it makes your insurance go down. Payroll, most likely, you have people that are not operating at 80% or above capacity. I had a client, we were doing an expense audit and he was in the marketing space, creative space. And his number one designer, he went and asked him, like, what kind of capacity are you running at right now? About 50%. Dude was 6 figures a year salary. That meant 50% of his time he was sitting around not being productive.
The fact that he admitted that is what's
comical.
Even more, I mean, you didn't even just lie to me.
And what was funny is he probably exaggerated it, right? You know, he was probably sitting at 40 and said 50 just to like make it sound better. So that meant half of the time. So this client was wasting $50,000 a year on salary on this guy. And so we immediately changed his compensation to be directly related to projects because he was doing project work. Gotcha. So we lowered his salary and gave him a commission on completion of projects. His productivity went up significantly, and he was actually able to do twice the work for the same amount of money. So what that did is it increased our profitability because we could do 2 jobs a month instead of 1.
You know, I really love that example because if you look at your business, you have to actually ask, what business am I really in? And if you're a marketing business and you have a lot of leads coming in, a lot of marketing opportunity coming in, the question is are you actually in the marketing business? Are you in the people management business? Because if you're getting a ton of inquiries and you're not actually servicing them, so you do a good job, you get good referrals and reviews, and your business continues to grow, then the business fails. So leads are not your issue. You're now in the people management business. And there's ebbs and flows. So it will be different at different points in time. It's like in the real estate business with brokerage. You're not really the main brokerage in the marketing and sales business. You're in the agent procurement business because your agents are the ones who are doing the marketing and sales and branding of the company. So that is a very good point. Where you are in your business, know what you need to be functioning well to increase that productivity and in essence, make more money. Now I want to shift to one of the next topics, which is super hot out there. How are you using AI in your business right now?
Absolutely. Great question. So lots of ways. First is content. I speak a lot on stages. And so depending on the audience that I'm speaking to and what the topic is, I'll put in the main point of my talk is what I want the key points to be. And then I'll have AI help fill in. And then I take that, incorporate it into my speech. We use it for content for social media, for publishing. So I'll write like a 5-point article about tax strategies for businesses. And then I'll put that into AI and have it fill it in and make it a 600-word newsletter that then goes out to our audience. And then on the actual accounting side of things, we use it in 2 ways. One, with our coding. So we use a third-party software that attaches to QuickBooks that basically the AI suggests where to code things much better than QuickBooks does. Because QuickBooks is supposed to learn how you code, but it doesn't very well. And so the third-party software looks at historical data of how things have been coded, plus uses web searches of what is this vendor to make a much better recommendation of what it believes that $12.99 was. Like, it'll know it was an Exxon gas station, where QuickBooks doesn't always know that Highway 84 South is a gas station, where the AI software will do that. With the CFOs, looking at historical data of the clients and then forecasting what their 14-week forecast, 12-month yearly, and also 5-year look ahead. So we do a lot of forecasting with our clients and we use AI for that. And then on the tax side of things, because we do tax strategy and tax filing, we use the software that you can upload their last 2 years' tax returns, their current year financials, and it will forecast what their tax liability is going to be and then select which strategies it feels are going to be the best for that client. So we use it a lot.
So if you're advising a client to do one thing in AI to help with their financial management, what one app or program would you suggest that they go out and get and implement today?
I don't know an app at the consumer level to use because all of the ones that we use are at the agency or the firm level. I don't know what, as a business owner, app you would use. Like, we use Keeper, Corby, Fathom. So we use a lot of agency level where it's a couple $100 a month per client to use.
I'm no financial or AI expert, but one of the things that I've actually been doing, if we go back to what you said about pulling your bank statements or credit card statements for the last 3 months and going over them and seeing what is there and what you need and what you don't need, I've put mine, just literally taken the PDF, put it in the Chat GPT and ask it to analyze it, break out my expenses, and give me suggestions on potential expenses that I can look at getting rid of or reducing. And it's actually given me some good information. It wasn't enough where I was felt safe that I could go do this myself. It's something where I still needed the advice of my fractional CFO and my COO, but it at least gave me, as the business owner, who's way more of a strategist, way more of a salesman and a visionary, talking point so I can go in and say, all right, let's look at these things. And that has been an incredible help. So what I want to do, Pam, for the last couple of minutes, I want to go into our rapid fire question session. You ready?
Let's go.
All right. Mentor or coach?
Mentor.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Rabbit or turtle?
Turtle.
If you could only grab one weapon during a zombie apocalypse, what would it be?
A bat.
Who would win in a fight, Barbie or My Little Pony?
My Little Pony.
Why My Little Pony?
Have you seen their tail?
Oh, yeah. Okay. The tail, right. And it's a glitter tail a lot of times. All right. So that makes sense. Your favorite movie or streaming series?
Top Gun.
Ooh, okay. Got you. So, dead or alive, who would you have dinner with tonight if you could pick?
Sarah Blakely.
Why Sarah Blakely?
She's the founder of Spanx.
If you were sitting down with her, what would be like your top 2 questions you'd want to ask her?
So I love how she is family and owns multi-billion-dollar business. So would want to ask about that integration and how that works and what her support team looks like to operate at that level. And then as far as she's done a partial exit, would want to learn how she prepared at that level for her exit. Because I mean, she got 3.5 billion and she's still a minority owner and operating it on a daily basis. So that's pretty baller.
Not bad. What is one book that you recommend every business owner read?
Profit First.
So I'm putting that on my read list.
Yep. I got it right here.
And what are we getting out of that book? I have to segue to that, and then we'll go back to the last couple questions.
So Profit First is a cash flow methodology created for entrepreneurs to better understand their numbers. And I'm a Profit First professional. My team are certified Profit First professionals. So we help people implement this methodology. It's multiple bank accounts. Each bank account has a purpose. So to some of your questions earlier, you were asking, how do I know what to pay myself? How do I know what my profit should be? How do I exit? Profit First answers a lot of those questions, because when you pull up your bank account and you see 5 bank accounts and each one has their own purpose and their own reason for being, you can make better financial decisions. Because while you might have $100,000 in all of them cumulatively, you only have $40,000 in your operating account. And that's the only money that you have access to that you can make decisions on, because everything else is earmarked for something else.
Okay, that makes sense. A few more questions. If you are a business that is doing $10 million a year in gross revenue, and I hand you a check for $300,000, what do you advise the business owner to do with that $300,000?
If their goal is to exit, I would spend that money on systems and people.
Great.
Because your business is going to be worth more if you have repeatable systems and processes, and if you have people that can run the business without you. But if you have a business that's $10 million and no proposal can go out without your approval, no bills can be paid without your approval, you're in every meeting that exists in the business, your business is not worth very much. So I would spend the money on systems and people.
Biggest obstacle you've had to overcome in your business?
Myself.
How'd you master yourself?
Coaching and mentors. Like you said, it's the mindset. It's our own trauma and shame that we have. For me, I was raised in an environment where you shouldn't want money. You shouldn't have money. You shouldn't have nice things. But it was a very evangelical, conservative world, that church-wise, that I was raised in. And so you shouldn't want to have nice things. You shouldn't want a nice house and lots of money. And so I had to do the work of, no, I work hard. It's okay for me to have nice things. It's okay for me to still serve in the church and still help people, but also go on vacation to nice places and spend money, because that's money that I've earned. And so for me, the biggest block was myself, and that it's okay to have nice things, and it's okay to have money, and it's okay to make a huge impact with the money that I make.
Beautiful. And last question, what are your top 3 money saving strategies for 2025?
Number 1, pay off your credit card every month. Don't carry a balance on your credit card. That's 26% at least. Some of them are higher. So that credit card balance is costing you a lot more money than you realize. 2 is review how you're compensating your team and pay them on success, not for showing up.
Love that. And number 3,
make sure you are putting money aside for tax strategy.
I mean, you've obviously done this before. Pam Jordan, before we bid you adieu, why don't you tell the audience how they can contact you if they have questions, comments, or complaints?
Absolutely. Just go to pamjordan.com.
Excellent. Pam, I really appreciate this. Incredibly insightful. We look forward to having you back in the future. I know the audience is going to garner a lot and take a lot away from this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to 0 to 100 podcast. We hope you feel inspired and ready to accelerate your business. Remember, your journey to success starts with a single step. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for greatness. For more resources and show notes, visit jaredguyrandolph.com. We'll see you next time.